Yeah. How you going?
The lads.
What's going on? Oh,
I'm chilling, man. How are you guys doing?
yeah, we're going really well,
Good.
thank you.
Where are you guys?
We're in Lennox Head. Have you been to Lennox before?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So we're here. We've got the Point Break, which is generally pretty good, although right now it's as bad a wave as you can imagine. But we've been just groveling little beaches and trying to fit surfs in wherever. What about you? Have you been getting waves?
I got a flu last week, so I missed it a little bit. But before that, yeah, I surf like seaside reef mostly. Try to mix it up with the hot shots out there. Sometimes I do, sometimes I fail.
I don't know. We've seen you surf. We're pretty impressed, Chris. I just
Still
love how
trying.
you
Still
footer.
trying.
Yeah, we've got a bit of goofy love going on here. Zach's a goofy footer. I'm a natural, so he was particularly impressed by that also.
Oh, good. Yeah, I guess it's apparently the right way to do it with your right foot forward, according to Christian Fletcher.
That's it. You know it. We haven't actually met you as of yet, Chris, but we don't know an awful lot about you. We know you from WSL broadcast. I remember you from I would have been early 2000s. And tell me if I'm making this up. Coach COTE, was this a thing?
That was me. Yep.
That was you. Yeah, was it Fiji sort of mission with Transworld Surf? Is that right?
Yeah, that was for the Globe Fiji Pro. Back to back years, I believe. I brought that character with me, uh, and basically, that was kind of my primetime party years. So it fell in a good time for the Globe ethos for those events, which was have as much fun as possible. It is as loose as a championship tour professional surf contest, could kind of get. When they were the main sponsors, the brothers behind Globe, basically their prime directive was, get wild, have fun. The surfers are going to do their thing, and as far as the production crew goes, we're going to cover everything. We're going to have as much fun as possible. And my job was to kind of be the mascot and push the performance on land as far as possible in terms of bar tabs and nightlife. And
Solid.
riling up that friendly rivalry between Namotu and Tavarua at the time, which was, it was a thing. Now it's a bit different, obviously in a lot of ways. But back then it was really fun because Namotu was pretty much the Australian island, and then Tavarua was kind of like the rest of the world. And so it was a really good, healthy, friendly, uh, t- loose rivalry.
I like it. So before we get into it, as Finley said, your voice and face is synonymous for us through the WSL. But apart from the WSL, to be quite frank, we don't really know much about you. So we did what every millennial or Gen Zer does, and we put it into Chat GPT. If you want to hear what Chat GPT has for you, this is a first for us as well. But
God, okay.
it's pretty good. It is. Chris Cote, a major voice in modern surf culture, a former surfer turned action sports media personality, commentator, and creator. He helped launch Transworld Surf and later became its editor-in-chief. Then moved into broadcasting with the WSL, Vans Events, and his own Monday at Mass podcast. Through Cote Media Group, he produces content for top skaters and surfers and skate brands, and he is known for bringing humor, energy, and deep industry knowledge into everything he does. What do you reckon of that? Is that true?
Been great talking to you guys. I'm gonna leave it at that. That is perfect. That's me. I don't want to ruin it. I just want you guys to think that's me. No, I mean, that's a very flattering, description of me. I appreciate that. Yeah, I would say that's pretty spot on the, I guess, the business side of what I do, which is kinda, like, intertwined with everything else that I do. But, yeah, basically, I was a, s B, C tier pro surfer for a while. Uh, didn't I went to Hawaii for the first time and realized that I was never gonna be an actual, like, ranked professional surfer because I was scared shitless. So, I just kind of did some QS stuff and then eventually started working in the industry, Billabong, Arnett, Reef, Hurley, kind of like for everybody. People liked having me around, I guess. I started touring with bands, working with Taylor Steele on his tours. And then in 1999, started Transworld Surf with a group of awesome people. Really, skateboard influenced, obviously. Through Transworld, started getting gigs, doing commentary, did my own show called COTE's Cube, like a early mini vlog, I guess, interview show. Worked with Fuel TV. That lasted, the magazine lasted till 2013. After that, just kind of went full on into broadcast stuff. Vans Park Series, WSL events, the Olympics, um, basically, snowboarding events, do tour, whatever I could do. I kind of just try to do everything as well as I can, and that's kind of what leads us to now. I guess I've been doing Monday Mass now for probably 10 years, which is crazy.
Wow.
A weekly action sports news program. We don't really have guests per se. We call people every once in a while, but mostly it's just, every single week, all the news for surf, skate, snow, some nerd news. We answer a bunch of audience questions. Still doing a ton of events, Red Bull, WSL. What you guys have an event you want me to come announce? I'll do it. I'll do whatever.
Beautiful.
And I play in bands and DJ, and you got to have like 9 jobs if you want to live in Encinitas, California, so I have 12 jobs.
It sounds like here it's pretty shocking as well here, especially maybe not. Oh, I guess here where we are in Lennox, but definitely down in Sydney and places like that. You got to just be a master of everything. It appears, but we do want to deep dive into your time at Transworld Surf. But before we get into that, we did some digging last night and we found an article that Stab did with you, and you described yourself pre Transworld Surf as a pothead loser, D grade, jobless pro surfer. Um,
Yes.
what did yeah, what did your days consist of before that?
Well, I never did well in school, so I guess when I should have been at college or university, I was kind of just like riding around on a BMX bike, um, with the homies, trying to surf and skate, working at like surf shops, pizza restaurants, um, just kind of, I want to say being a loser because I was still like doing stuff, but I was definitely in that, like, 20, 19, 20, 21 year old, just pothead, kind of like cruising, surfing as much as possible, just with the homies, trying to meet girls, and that was pretty much all we cared about. I was like the worst surf shop employee ever. I never even folded one shirt, but it's funny because that surf shop Hanson that I used to be that guy at. They sponsor the podcast now, so I guess I did
Wow.
something right.
Yeah.
Just kind of like your typical loose cannon. Never hurt anyone, but definitely did damage to myself.
And what was the catalyst that sort of made you step aside from that lifestyle and go into something a bit more meaningful?
I think it was just, like you do that for a couple years, inevitably you're gonna get literally burnt out from being a burnout. I think it was like a girlfriend at the time and just friends and just kind of everything coming to a point where I'm just like, God, I gotta like get my shit together. And I literally remember like the physical manifestation of quitting like smoking pot was like throwing the bong off a cliff, um, and saying like, all right, I'm doing this. And it all kind of started falling into place. Like that's when got the call for Transworld. That's when I was like, I think my girl at the time was like, I can't date you unless you have a car. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So I got a car, I got a job, and I loved it. I had worked for magazines and written articles and done like, passed the magazines out at the surf shop and stuff. So I like knew about it. I always had skills in writing, in conceptualizing article ideas and, all that magazine making stuff. And so when I was able to really focus and use all of those skills and use my knowledge in the surf world and my connections in the surf world and apply it to Transworld, I just loved every second of it. And I was like fully focused, fully in it. I drank the Kool-Aid for sure. And we were doing something pretty different at the time. I guess what would the word you would use? Like, we came in as like the third magazine, especially, here in America for sure. We were kind of like the stepchildren that just came to the party and just flipped everything on its head. Like Surfer and Surfing had it pretty easy up until we came along. So we kind of made the decision early on. It was like it was going to be about airs. It was going to be about personalities, discovering new people, taking more of like a Transworld Skateboarding, Big Brother magazine kind of ethos into the surf world. And it just so happened to be at that time, it was like surf industry was going crazy. All the like skate shoe brands came in, Sony, like all the big companies wanted to be part of surfing. And so we were placed as like the new kids to do it. And so we took it and ran with it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. What are your fondest memories in the early days of the magazine? Anything stand out that's just stamped in your brain and you'll never forget?
Just like I never did the college thing, like, went to the dorm rooms or any of that stuff. So it was kind of like college for me. It was so rad to go in and like, there was a coffee maker there. There we had our mailboxes and there was like packages and mail in it every single morning. And we had computers, we had printers. Like I could go and screw around and just like make my own little zines off the photocopy machines. We had access to everything. And then when budgets started getting bigger, it was like you would go to Indonesia on a boat trip once a year. You would go to Tavarua 2 times a year. Australia every year, like you would just there was nobody ever told us no. And everywhere we went, it was a party. So it was like I think that just the overall fun of it was crazy. Like I would literally work an hour in the day. We had a skate park in the building. We had all of our friends working there. We had corporate cards and and we were making the company money. So people loved us and they just like never told us no. So we kind of just did whatever we wanted. It was pretty much a constant party, at least for the first, you know, 8 years or so.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of touched on it before. This kind of was the golden age of surfing. Like there was six-figure sponsorship contracts being handed out like lollies, surf brands commandeering Mentawai's boats. Like life was pretty good at this stage. Seems like probably the best time to start something like this, right?
My gosh. And think of the people, yeah, all that stuff. And then the people, right? The Irons brothers were pretty fresh. We were making, quote, discoveries of people, at least to our audience, Taj Burrow, Ozzy Wright, like this was a time when that whole generation, Fanning, Dean Morrison, Parco, like we were the first magazines to like interview these guys and show what they looked like and like, bring them to our readership. And so it was like every single issue you had the advertising sales guys would come in and be like, "Hey, we just sold 8 more spreads to Billabong, so you guys have 20 more pages to work with." And we'd be like, okay, shit." Looking around the office like, we got all these wetsuits. Let's burn them. Let's put these trunks on dogs. Let's cut these surfboards up with chainsaws. Like whatever we could do to just annoy people and like have fun. It 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 landed in the magazine, and I think you could pretty clearly tell by reading that magazine that we were having a ton of fun making it. So it was really the perfect time and the perfect storm. And, also like the surfing was just getting better and better. We were really heavily focused on airs, progression, sequences in the magazine. We like were really anal about like you cannot run a photo unless the dude made it. And like and that came from being literally sharing a wall with Transworld Skateboarding. It's like those guys would give us shit. They'd hold up the magazine and be like, "Really? That's a bail." And we'd be like, "Shit. Okay, you got us on that one." And we had like weird nerdy tendencies, but also we had a pretty much a blank check, not only financially but also like in the fun zone.
That must have really rubbed the other surfer and surfing life and all the others the wrong way, right? Like, was there a bit of friction there during these kind of heydays?
With Surfer and Surfing, it was for the editorial people. It was like a friendly, fun rivalry because it was like, oh, who can get the scoop on the swell, or who can find the raddest new surfer from somewhere else in the world? Who can do the best pro spotlight? For the advertising guys, it was definitely a lot more cutthroat. These guys were like, luckily at the time there was a lot of money going around, and so a lot of these big brands had the money to do big advertising runs in all three magazines. But as that got more and more competitive, the sales tactics would get more and more competitive too. So they definitely had a harder job just in the way of like battling, because all the editorial guys, we're all homies, and like we definitely would be competitive. And if like a photographer would go from one magazine to the other, it was like a big deal. We like excommunicated that person. If Surfing Magazine got like a sick trip and we're just like, what? Like we would get, like not mad at the surfers, but we'd be like, what? Come on. And the surfers were loving it because they were getting like pulled to all three mags. So they kind of had their pick. We got picked a lot because we were definitely the most fun. But it was a friendly, fun rivalry that I think brought out the best in all three magazines. Surfer kind of stayed true to what they were doing. Us and Surfing Magazine definitely like went back and forth. We had like the Taylor Steele second second phase of the momentum generation like in our pocket. Whereas when Kai Neville and the Modern Collective generation came, like they were with Surfing Magazine. So we were just, that was like a big deal. So it's kind of like issue to issue. You could kind of tell like who won that month, who had the better cover, who had the better featured trip. And it made it really fun. And we would do shit like go to the newsstands at the airport and like take the stack of Surfing magazines and like flip them around and put ours in front. Stuff like that where, it's harmless, it's fun,
Yeah.
but then eventually it's like budget started to shrink a little bit, got a little bit more cutthroat. And we always kind of, I think all of us were just so stoked and fortunate to be like doing these rad jobs that we never let the competitiveness like actually get real. It was fun competition.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and competition's necessary, right? In business, like you got to have it to push each other as well. So there's that as well. But as editor in chief, which was your role throughout the lifespan of the magazine, how much say did you have in what went out to the public? Were there politics involved, or did you have complete sort of artistic freedom?
It's a team. I was editor for probably half of it, and then editor in chief for like the second half of it. You know, it I would see in a way you do have like the final say, but I respected and all the people that we worked with, and everyone was really smart, really good at their job, and so like I was never, I think maybe 3 or 4 times that I had to just be like, nope, that's the cover, because we could
Yeah,
go back and forth all day and all night and argue, and it's like you have, these are artists, so you have a lot of different personalities, and like art directors that are saying, I will quit if I don't get to use this color on the cover, or if that's the cover image, I'm gonna quit, and you're like, okay, well, it's not a like, you would have to be you have to be willing to negotiate and kind of help to manage personalities, because again, you're artists, photographers, writers, graphic artists, and everybody wanted to have their part of their personality in the magazine. So it was definitely a way more of a team thing than like a I'm the boss, this is how it is. Every once in a while you had to do it, but I'm a team player, like I'm a team guy, and I don't, I want people to shine, and so it did feel good though every once in a while to just be like, nope, this is it, like get out of my office.
Yeah.
yes,
Well,
yeah.
a magazine cover can literally make its career. Was there any one particular that stood out to you, like the best cover that you can remember?
I mean, the Nathan Fletcher cover that Brian Beelman shot in Tahiti, basically, flying into the depths of hell, was one where, it was literally like racing to the printer to get this thing out there, because we knew there was like 2 or 3 other photographers in the area. That was one that was going to make Nathan was already legend and all that, but that cover made him like an icon. And as same as Brian Beelman, the photographer. So it was that was probably one of the most memorable covers, that just right when we heard about the moment and we saw the photo, it was like, stop everything. This is going to change shit. So I think that was one of many that stood out, but that one in particular was just like, it was, like how proud and excited you were when you had the stack of magazines and you could just like put it on people's desks or hand it to your friends and just be like, check this out. Like that one felt good.
Yeah, yeah. And how quickly can you turn around, like when you're doing it? How quickly does it take to turn around a magazine, like from start to finish? What's the process like?
At the time, it was, I would say like, I guess a month, or a little bit less than a month, because you had the deadline and you'd have some stuff kind of like ready to go and saved up. Some of the things would be, like product reviews where you could literally go behind the building and like shoot photos of the stuff, and like that would be a day. Other stuff, you basically would just save space up until the very last minute and hope that the trip got waves, or hope that, the guys pro spotlight photography would come in time. So we had it down to the wire a few times, and those were the times when you're sitting in your office at midnight, just like, oh my god, at the time it feels like the world's going to end if you don't get this guy's photo in the magazine. Whereas you might have had to pay like a couple $100 extra to like rush it at the last minute, but when you're in it, it feels so important. It feels like you're gonna die if you don't get this thing done on time. And we hit 99% of our deadlines, which is a miracle. we're surfers. And
Yeah,
all of this work and all this stuff, like when the waves were good, nobody was in the office.
yeah. No, you did. You're right. It probably is a miracle you got that kind of
Yeah.
strike.
And this is gonna sound boomerish, but it's like we only had iPhones and really like cell phones for the last quarter, the last third of the magazine. And so it was, being on like I remember I had a cell phone bill from Tahiti that was like $800 because I'm like trying to send one 3 meg like image on my flip phone and it costs like $500. So, everything was a little slower. And the internet, like we were before, pre-internet. And I remember like when we got the directive from the bosses, it was like, hey, you guys, you need to put whatever you have left over on the website. We're like,
Yeah.
ugh. My brother was the the website editor, and I remember he would take him like 2 or 3 hours to like load one photo, coding, and this is from like Oceanside. You can imagine if when he was in Australia, and no offense, but you guys' internet is still like in the 90s.
Yeah, it's bad.
So back then it was even worse. So he definitely had a hard job at first, and then obviously everything switched, and it was like, oh, all the good shit's going on the website, and we might have some stuff left over for the magazine.
Yeah,
Right.
right. Did you like during your time doing it? Are you getting pros coming up to you and blowing up either from articles you've written about them or them feeling like a little bit neglected that they're not getting write ups?
That is the kindest way of asking if I got threatened by pro surfers. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. There was a span of like 2 years where I don't think I answered an 808 phone number from my desk. 808 being the numbers from Hawaii.
Yeah.
It's like I I wasn't in the business of outing people, like it sounds lame nowadays because like I called myself a journalist, but like I was partying with all these guys. I was doing the same stuff as these guys, so I wasn't gonna like write something scandalous
Yeah.
about my friends to like sell a couple more magazines. I've always been a positive person, and so you only have so much space to talk about these surfers, guys, girls, events. And I just didn't feel like there wasn't much room for negativity. And so I never got really threatened for stuff that I wrote. It was more like people that got left out of the magazine or, it was always like in September, October, you would start to get more and more calls from Del Boys trying to make sure that they got a picture in the mag before we came over to Hawaii because we were going to be there for a month. And if we wanted to have a good trip, you better make sure a couple of the right guys were in the magazine.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
Our next question is a visual question, and we just want you to describe this photo.
But yeah. So that was the first ever surf rail um, that was actually like completed. That was called the Surf Rail of Death. We worked with this Fuel TV show called Built to Shred. And basically, myself, my brother, Jeff King from Built to Shred, Aaron Checkwood, we got together, art director, Mark Hoster, we got together and we said, look, we're going to build a surf rail for the show, for the magazine. We did it and it was trial and error a couple times. But once we got it like dialed, we had this big session and it was psycho. Like people were eating shit. Um, and I was like, I wasn't trying to, I guess I did put myself in the magazine a lot because whatever, I was the editor in chief. Why not?
Why not?
And I could still surf and skate and all that. So this particular shoot, we were all trying it. We were all like eating it, but getting closer and closer. Ricky Whitlock was the first guy in the world to make it. and that fired everybody up. And then a couple waves later, I was the second person in the world to successfully grind across it and ride off. And then like a bunch of people started making it. So it was it was kind of validation, right? Like, you know, I'm mixing it up out there with the pros, and I made it before most of them. So that felt pretty good. But that was one of the most fun, scary, you know, exciting things that we did. And that was another thing that set us apart from the other magazines is like we weren't afraid to try weird shit.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's definitely one of probably I think that's my top 3 surf photos ever.
It's pretty mental.
I
And
love it.
does it bring a tear to your eye now to see like the Swatch Nines broadcasting concepts that are similar to what you've presented here?
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that's like trying to get credit for that kind of stuff. I just celebrate it. Like, would I want to be hired to announce it? Would I want to be part of Stab High? Of course, because I feel like I was a big part in the start of all that stuff. But you know, I'm not. I'm a fan. Like I get stoked when people try this stuff. Like Mason Ho's board slide revert was insane, and like I if that would happen when I was at Transworld, that would have been a cover. Like I love it, you know, and I feel like it makes me proud, right? When you see all this attention about a board slide or, you know, like a some new trick being done, and I'm kind of like in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, well, cool. We did that in 2004, you
Yeah.
know, but at the same time, like I get stoked. I'm a surf nerd. I'm a huge fan. I watch everything, you know. I want to be invited to everything, but I get it that you know I could be easily played out if I did get invited to everything. So I'm
No, that's
content
all
and
right.
stoked to watch it go down. Like Swatch Nines, Stab High, like this stuff is so good for surfing. It's just so entertaining. It's just like I'm all about it.
We'll have a chat to him for you. We'll send him
Yeah,
to
put in
your.
a good word for me, guys.
What about 2013? What happened in 2013 with the magazine?
2013 was basically the, you know, that was like recessional downturn, whatever. It was Instagram, it was the internet, it was magazines just starting to fall off the rack and not get put back up. Um, I think like we were purchased by a couple different parent companies. Eventually we got purchased by the same company that owned Surfer and Surfing magazine. So it was kind of like we got picked to get chucked. I actually they held on to me after the magazine was over, and I was kind of like floating around in the office, still getting paid. I was supposed to be working on this website, but I was kind of like pissed off, so I just kind of like hung out, played ping pong, and hung out with the skaters for
Nice.
as long as I could.
Yeah. Did you have any inkling that it was coming? Was it obvious to you at the time, or was it a shock?
It was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
You didn't want to like admit it, but for the last year or so, I had already made myself editor at large. I was doing like Fuel TV on Mondays. I was doing you know, different kind of like consulting and stuff on the side. I was doing a bunch of surf events and skate events, snowboarding events. So I was really only going into the office 1 day a week at this time. And so you kind of saw the writing on the wall. And I think we all just, without being desperate, we all kind of just like tried to hold it together for as long as possible because we're all friends and we're all getting paid to like make a surf magazine. So of course we wanted to do that for as long as possible. But you know, inevitably, it's like when you get that email. I don't know if you guys have worked in like a corporate environment, but you get a lot of emails of like all hands on deck meeting on Friday at 11, and you're like, oh shit, we're all getting fired. It's like you knew that when those emails came, like So we would, then that's when you start like grabbing stuff off the walls and like putting it in your car, like sneaky after work, taking office furniture.
Well, and the final mag was titled "The Party's Over," right? Was that correct?
Yeah, we didn't have the chance to kind of like dedicate a whole issue to the lifespan of Transworld Surf, which is probably a good thing because we probably would have gotten pretty bitter. But we were able to switch a few things around. And it was kind of like our goodbye. It was like F you to the corporate overlords. Like, you guys blew it. And it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
yeah, it was just like, I don't know, it was a wipeout shot. You could just like see this dude's feet getting sucked over at Chopo.
yeah.
And it was true. It was like we had a 13-year party masked as a job. And so I was like, all right, party's over. And I think that we kind of knew that the party for surf magazines in general was over, at least in the USA for a while. Um, so it was a fitting end of an era.
What are your thoughts current day? We've got here in our notes some things that have been recycled, such as Pokemon cards, denim jorts, long bong board shorts that are knee slappers. Do you see magazines making a return in 2026 and onwards?
Um, I mean, like I have a couple copies of Surfer's Journal, like recent ones in my car, and I love that magazine, but I have a hard time like sitting down and like reading through the magazine, which I think a lot of people do. I don't see magazine resurgence in the like surf, skate, snow landscape on a grand scale. There are some mags out there that, like Surfer's Journal being one of them. Slush magazine in snowboarding. There's a magazine called Closer in skateboarding. So there's a handful of magazines. There's some guys in UK doing a pretty cool magazine. There's still some out there. I don't see them ever coming back like as they were, like monthly on the racks. Like I don't even know where a magazine rack is. Like I don't see them.
Yeah,
But I do a magazine called Encinitas Magazine. I've been doing it for almost 10 years. It's bi-monthly. It's like 50 pages, but it's all about my, Encinitas. And it's
yeah,
like you put stacks at the coffee shop, at the surf shops. We do, I don't know, about 18,000 to 20,000 copies for a 2-month run. Um, I think those types of magazines will always, that will be around because this magazine is kind of like a love letter to the town. So it's more of like a cultural thing. But it's rough. I mean, like when you look at I look at Instagram a lot and I think, when I see an amazing photo, I'm like, God, that would be a good magazine cover. But it's already out. It's already out there. The thing was shot like that morning and in an hour later it's on Instagram. Um I think vlogs have kind of taken vlogs and podcasts have taken over that space.
yeah, yeah. And, and so TWS ends 2013. What does life look like for you immediately following this?
I mean, I was kind of like doing a lot of the same things. I was uh I was still traveling a bunch, surfing, doing all that stuff. It was mostly events, um, consulting stuff. I started my own company, COTE Media Group, to kind of like take all the side hustles and put them into one thing. I was still writing, you know, always writing. And that was kind of like, I guess it was exciting because it was kind of like a freedom to do whatever. And I had been kind of like out of the office a lot anyway, so it wasn't that much different.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess it's all worked out, right? Because we find you in 2025 as one of the key figures on the WSL's commentary team. Is this, I mean, it sounds like what you were doing originally was the real dream job, but in today's day and age, is this the new dream job?
It's a pretty dreamy job. I mean, I probably get, 4 or 5 championship tour events for the year. You factor in like US Open and a couple of regional like Challenger Series or QS events, and it's just the raddest job. I do a lot of ISA events as well, and whatever, all that kind of stuff. But I come at it as a fan, but I'm also a historian, a storyteller, a entertainer. I want to entertain, inform, and make like a 9-hour broadcast as entertaining as possible. Try not to repeat myself. Try to give the audience something new, I guess. The people you get to work with are super rad. You get to surf on your days off. You're literally like getting flown to El Salvador or Tahiti, and it's like, oh, contest is off. It's flat. And when it's flat for pros, that means it's perfect size for me. Like, it's flat. And I'm like, oh, sweet. That means I maybe can get to surf today. So
Yeah.
those events, the WSL CT events it's the raddest job ever. The ISA events are long, they're longer. There's a lot more heats. There's a lot more just days in a row, but you're watching people and talking about people and telling stories of surfers from like every part of the world. So you'll have, like a typical ISA first 3 or 4 days. It's like a heat will be Gabriel Medina, a dude who's only surfed in a river from Afghanistan, a guy from Senegal who you've never heard of that absolutely rips, and like somebody in between, like a ripping Australian QS dude. And it's just like you have these there's a lot of joy at those events. So I try to take something from every event and like tell that story. And I have a lot of fun. I mean, it is hard work for sure, but it's a really cool job.
And I
I'll
like
never
that
take
you
it for granted.
Nah, that yeah. I was gonna say I like that you use the word entertainer as well because we're quite fond of your commentary style, and you keep the broadcast entertaining, but obviously the nature of surfing as a sport, we're at the mercy of the ocean, which at times can be tough to watch. How do you ensure that the conversation keeps going? Like, what do you have any go tos that you circle back to, or is it just you just talk shit basically?
Yeah, obviously all these events are different, but I don't have notes like stats really. Like, oh, Gabriel Medina has won here 13% of the time. It's like that's all provided. So you have all that. I like to have words and phrases and just song lyrics, fun facts about these people, and I just like have this massive, messy list of just crap. And so to try to keep myself entertained and hopefully the audience, I just like will pick, like, okay, like now we're gonna go with this word and try to work that in. Or, like you talk to some of the surfers before the event or the night, like the nights after, and you just have fun little tidbits that you talked about. And, and knowing full well that like, yeah, there's passionate people that watch this thing from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But for the most part, it's like people are kind of checking in throughout the day. And so, whatever that they're checking in, you just try to like grab their attention. You like when you're, when I'm doing like post heat interviews in Tahiti, it's like you don't have to do much. They just
Yeah.
got the sickest barrel of their life or the worst wipeout they've had of the year. And so you kind of just let them come to you and you're like, what the hell just happened? Like you don't have to do much, right? Whereas if you're in Huntington Beach, it's Thursday afternoon, day 10 of the contest. Is 1 foot, it's low tide, it's as bad as it gets. And you're just like, all right, well, we're all in the same boat here, the surfers and us in the broadcast booth. Let's just do our best.
What about I've done a few events as well, and it can get tough, especially the younger Grom events are hard to talk to if you get my drift at certain times, especially in the earlier rounds. But is there any slip ups or things said on a hot mic throughout your career where you just want to bang your head against the nail and you go far out? Did I really just fucking say that on live TV? I've done a couple, so I know, but any from your end?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, so many, like I learned a long time ago that you don't go back. You don't go backwards. You just move forward. Like mispronouncing people's names. I think the worst one I ever had was I stayed up way too late partying. Tried to go work in the morning, and apparently I was blacked out and I was slurring. I was not making sense, and I got tapped on the shoulder and told to go take a nap. And then I did. And I woke up around lunchtime, and it's just like I was walking around the contest site, and like the looks that I was getting was like so bad. Like, I'll never do that again. So that was the worst one. Like, but slip ups are gonna happen, and like again, I'm not trying to like I can't say that like John's turn wasn't good enough or like he needs to bend his knee more. So it's like I'm not getting flack from surfers like that. I have said thing. I guess like mistake wise, it's more just the little things that that like drive you crazy because you did it and no one like usually notices. Um, yeah, I mean, there's been a bunch, and it's a lot of times it's going so fast, and you're like, oh, Chris Moore, two-time world champ, and then like 5 minutes later, you're like, oh my god, it's like five or what, whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's like I tell everybody who's getting into commentary or guests in the booth, it's like, if you mess up, don't go backwards and be like, oh, you know what? 6 heats ago, I said that Felipe Toledo has only won here going right, but he actually won going left in 2024. Like people don't care.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
move forward.
100%. And on a more sort of positive note, I guess, have you got a favorite heat that you can ever remember calling? Is there one that sticks out in your mind?
The Kelly Slater pipeline win when he was 50 was like dream come true, dream heat, dream scenario. And that was one that I felt like I was in the zone. And like I can listen back to a lot of my calls that come up on Instagram and stuff and cringe, but that one I'm pretty stoked on. There was one call that I did in Brazil. I think it was Felipe Toledo when he won, and this line in my mind came: Felipe Toledo is basking in the golden glow of victory. And like right, I said that, and I was like, check it, mark it, I'm out.
Yeah.
Just lock
Yeah.
that one in.
Mic drop.
Yeah, those were two that felt really good.
Yeah. And to have your voice, I guess, immortalized over that Kelly Slater win at such a sort of historic event for him is pretty special, I imagine, right?
Totally. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
I'll repost that every time it pops up on the gram. Every time.
Yeah, yeah. Now, we're in the midst of one of the great off seasons right now. The tour finished in September, doesn't kick off again until I think April next year. What do you get up to when there's no comps?
I mean, I do the podcast every single Monday. I still do. I just did the ISA World Parasurfing Championships. So there's a lot of surf events, in between.
Yeah,
Um, I'm going to Peru in a couple weeks for the World Junior Championships. So, I do the like ISA surf events. I do some skate events. I just did the Red Bull building drop broadcast. That was pretty sick. So I do a lot of events. I do stuff around home. I DJ a lot, play a ton of music. Um, constantly like hustling for gigs, writing, doing side hustles. And again, now the season is condensed further into the back year, so you know I'm I'm not going to have a championship tour event. Potentially till like late spring, summer. I
yeah,
don't do the Australian leg, and that's where you start off. So it's going to be a while. But hopefully, pick up a Challenger series or two. Pick up a QS or two, an ISA event. One-off skate or snow events. But I definitely keep myself plenty busy.
It sounds like it. Sounds like you can't sit
Yeah,
still.
I try not to.
A young lady or a young guy getting into sports commentary, is there a buck to be made, or is it more of a passion?
I mean, there's a lot of events around the world, like depending on where you're at. Uh, I wouldn't say it's there are very few people in the world that like that's their only thing is like a surf commentator. Look at like the Blakey brothers. Look at anybody who's kind of like you see on a lot of the tour events, but not all of them. It's like they're all doing multiple jobs. And it's almost like you do all these other jobs, and then when the tour event comes up, you're stoked because you're like, oh, it's almost like a vacation because you
Yeah.
can fully focus on this one thing. Whereas when you're at home, you're doing a magazine, you're you're working at a surf company, you're a manager, you're whatever, like you have 8 jobs. But when you're on site at a CT event, you're like, this is what I'm focused on this week. And it feels really good. And then so it is almost like a vacation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
In the surf industry, we gotta hustle.
Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely. This upcoming WSL season is particularly exciting. We're going to see a few familiar faces back on tour. So we've got Carissa, John, Steph, and Gabby all rejoining the tours. We got a hypothetical for you. We want you to pick one to challenge for the title, two to retain their spot, and one to fall off.
The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are coming back.
Absolutely.
Geez, that's a tough one. Okay. I'm gonna say that Medina is gonna challenge for the title. Bro, like it's Gabriel Medina. He's pissed off.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna say that fall off. I mean, I hate to say it, but like Stephanie Gilmore is the greatest all time, always will be. Will she be like in a gnarly competitive mindset going up against Katie and Molly and Aaron Brooks, and like then the rest of them? Uh, that could potentially be the fall off, but she's so good that who knows? I think Carissa Moore and John are kind of the wild cards in that conversation because, obviously if John's on, he's unbeatable. Same with Carissa Moore. I feel like Carissa Moore is going to be the interesting one to watch because we haven't seen, well, Carissa and Stephanie, we haven't seen them going up against Katie, Molly, like that crew that much. And so it's going to be like, I think a bit of a shocking thing to see, like Katie Simmers versus Stephanie Gilmore. Like that is going to be amazing. I can't
Absolutely.
wait to see that. Gabby against Carissa Moore in like on a big right. Like that's going to be so fun to watch. And I think to me, like this is the most exciting preseason news like lead up ever. And it's crazy that we still have like 4 more months to have to wait. So I think that was like that announcement got me the surf fan in me super fired up. And like I think we all were thinking about like all these different scenarios that could go down. But I think Medina is gonna be gnarly. Like I think you you can again a handful of times where you've watched like Medina go up against Griff and Ethan and Jack. Like we've seen some history there, but not much recent history. So it's gonna be real fun to watch.
Yeah.
What do you
I
think?
think all those young guys have now a lot more confidence than they did when they used to surf against Gabe. So that one's gonna be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think there's a lot of anticipation for the 2026 tour based upon that it's going back to its traditional method of accumulative results throughout the year, or were you for the cut, against the cut? What are your thoughts there?
No, all of it. You got like, this is surfers are very sentimental. We're stubborn. We like things how we like them. And so the fact that the tour is going back to that classic format is huge. That's a super exciting thing for surfers, surf fans, competitive surf fans. Then you add like the superstars coming back. No cut. It's just like we all got what we wanted for Christmas. We just have to wait. Like the presents are under the tree, and we're just looking at them like, come on, I want to open them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we want to get your, so in 12 months time or whatever it is, so we can look back and go, Chris is a genius. Who's your men's and ladies world title pick for next year?
Medina and Katie.
Nice. Yeah.
So
No. I like it. And you don't even really have to explain that. That's kind of like, it's pretty self-explanatory why. I agree with the Gabby column. He's going to be hungry. Like he's missed it. I think John coming back is a huge factor in his decision to throw the Rashi back on too, and can't wait to see those two go hammer and tong against each other.
Oh yeah, I'm most excited to see John surfing in a jersey, but I'm also like, I just have a high anticipation factor to see Medina come back, kind of after like that. I mean, when was it? Like he hasn't surfed in 2 years. Does it feel like
It
2 years?
feels, I don't know how long it's been, but it feels like 2 years. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I want to jump in and change the mood a little bit. I don't know if it will go good or bad here, but what are your current thoughts on the state of surfing right now? It's a big topic. You know, you go on Stab Magazine and whatnot, and there's probably every 6 weeks it comes up because it's such a dynamic environment at the moment. What's your kind of opinion?
It's the best ever. Wave pools, surfboards are so much easier to ride now than they've ever been. We have way more choices of like boards for different styles and different waves. We can go to a wave pool and like learn how to do airs like we've never been able to before. You can go to YouTube and watch any type of surfer and any type of waves. Um, like the state of surfing in terms of being a fan and being an actual surfer is better than ever. The only problem is it's also more crowded than ever. So if you don't let the crowds get you down, like this is the best time ever to be a surfer. Like when I was a kid, it's like you had a board, and if it worked good, you were stoked. If it worked like shit, you were just that's it. Like you didn't have a choice. Now it's like twin fins, thrusters, what we have everything we want. And there are so many boards out there that you can literally go online. You're like, I want to try a quad, and go to Craigslist and you like buy a quad for $100. So I just think like the state of surfing is it's not the surf industry. Like surfing is not the surf industry, right? Surfing is like surfing as a whole. That part of it is the best ever. Like we literally have everything at our fingertips at any time. We know we know when the waves are good anywhere in the world every second of the day, right? Just because like the big clothing companies and the surf shops and like I want surf shops to thrive. I want surf companies to be doing well, but I just don't think like the industry metrics are what dictates health in surfing. Surfing as a whole is better than it's ever been.
It's really interesting to hear an optimistic take on it because I follow the same kind of idea. I think we might be walking into a new golden era. It's just going to look and feel different. Another question that I get asked a lot is, what is a core surfer going to look like in 2030? Because I feel like that's where a lot of people get hung up. Like we can identify core surfers so easily, but what's the next gen of core surfers going to look like, in your opinion?
I think it's just people that like surf a lot. We all know people that think they're super core, but they don't surf enough. They have all the excuses in the world and they make fun of people like, look at this dickhead with his board on the car facing the wrong way, strapped to the roof. And it's like, yeah, well, you're sitting at the bar and that person's going surfing, So I think like the core is just someone who loves it, whether they're a kook or not. It's like you're hardcore if you just keep surfing and you
Mm.
surf when the waves are bad and you surf when it's crowded and you don't care if you have the coolest wetsuit or whatever. Like that's core to me. And I think like on a pro level, it's just like somebody who's doing it for the right reasons. Like it can be the number one ranked guy on the CT who's core because you can tell he just loves it. It could be the Instagram model female who's like doing that to pay so she can go to surf in Bali. It's like there's a lot of different ways to be core. I don't think the guy that wears all the right gear and like says the right stuff on Instagram is necessarily core. It's just somebody that loves surfing and does not give a shit what you think about how they surf, what they ride, where they surf, etc.
Very true.
Yeah, I love it. Got a different one here for you. Kiss, marry, kill. Joe Turpel, Ronnie Blakey, Strider.
Oh, wow. We, not to sidetrack you, but that we did a F Mary Kill on my podcast today with the Florence brothers, and that was devastating to have to do. You're gonna have to listen to the Monday Mass to hear that one. For this one, all right, I'm gonna marry Joe Turpel. I love Joe. He is one of the nicest humans on the planet. Um, I mean, God, Ronnie and Strider. I guess Ronnie, I gotta kiss him because he's so damn handsome. And Strider's handsome too, but you just put Strider in a precarious position. Um, I think Strider's lived such an amazing life that he wouldn't mind it ending because he's done so much radical, cool things. So yeah,
That's the way to kill someone I've ever heard.
yeah. You guys are invited to the wedding of Chris Cote and Joe Turpel.
Amazing. And
Fantastic.
who wouldn't want to hear the soothing noises of Joe Turpel for the rest of their life, right? He's got a voice like an angel.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And then, Chris, we've been super appreciative for your time today. I've got one more for you, though, before we bail.
Okay.
And this may be the biggest question we have for you. Uh,
Okay. I'm ready.
what have we got to do to get a solid surfing game in 2025? Transworld Surf, Sonny Garcia, Kelly Slater, Pro Surfer, all came out sort of very early 2000s, and we haven't been able to beat them since. What do we got to do?
I mean, everybody knows the Transworld Surf game was by far the best surfing video game. I think right now, uh, my son and I have been playing Skate, EA Skate.
Yeah, same.
I think the controls and the mechanics in that game would suit surfing really well. I think that illustrating water or animating water is the hardest thing you can do in a video game. So with AI technology now, I think if you took something like True Surf, but put like an EA Skate character on the wave instead of just a board, and manipulated the waves, you could you could you 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 could make a really rad and fun video game. You would just have to make it a little bit more like fantastic, more of like a fantasy thing where you have a wave that goes in different directions, like a wedge that you can go right and left, back and forth. There's rails in the water. There's, obstacles and stuff like that. So it would be kind of, I would say, like a Transworld Surf engine, but you have way more options of like where to go on the waves and what's happening on the waves. So it'd be like a fantasy version. Um, I think now you could do like there's wave pools and just cool weird waves. So it would take a developer that knows about the mechanics of surfing, that knows the tricks, that would actually give you credit for 540s.
Yeah.
That would I would say just taking like the new EA Skate game, applying it to water and building this world that was beyond just like riding the waves. Like I guess you could do challenges like on land and stuff, like just making it a little bit more broad than just like surfing the wave.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. You might have to trademark that. Otherwise, the Largo boys might steal that idea.
No,
Take it, man. Take it. I'll play it.
to be fair, I think if anyone out there's thinking of making one or is in the process of making one, I can't really think of of a better person to have over their shoulder looking on than you. So if anyone's doing it, then get Chris on board. But
Thank you
Chris,
so much.
yeah, no, and thank you for your time today. It's been amazing. We've been stoked to chat with you. Where can the listeners find Monday Mass as well? Where are you on?
At monday.mass on the gram. You can go to at Chris COTE on the gram. It's on the gram. Everything's on the gram. Are you on the gram? Get on the gram. What are you doing? Are you on Twitter?
Amazing. Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you to everyone for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me.